get back to James Longman, who is outside Buckingham Palace with a front row seat for when the royal family finds their way onto the balcony. Hey again, James.
Hi, Michael. Yeah, we've been looking at that balcony. Oh, there it is behind us all morning. And, you know, this is just the spot where the working members of the royal family will be for that famous photograph. Laura and I have been taking a look back at royal appearances over the years.
Since Queen Victoria first appeared there in the late 19th century, the balcony at Buckingham Palace is where the royal family has publicly marked celebrations like birthdays, jubilees, weddings, and of course, coronations.
In 1935, young Princess Elizabeth appeared for her grandfather's silver jubilee, and she waved alongside her mother, sister, grandmother, and newly crowned father, King George VI.
And greater crowds surge around the palace railings as onto the balcony come the royal family, accompanied by our Prime Minister himself.
Winston Churchill joining the family on the balcony to celebrate the end of World War II in Europe. Queen Elizabeth would later mark the 50th anniversary with her mother and sister, Princess Margaret. And the Queen Mother singing Rule Britannia along with the crowd.
Elizabeth and Prince Philip celebrated their wedding on the balcony in 1947. Young Charles appeared for his mother's coronation in 1953, offering this salute a few days later during the Trooping of the Colour, annual celebrations of the Queen's birthday.
Here in military regalia with newborn Prince Edward in her arms in 1964. This appearance in 2019 would be the last time before the COVID pandemic.
The tradition has yielded unscripted moments, showing the royal family as maybe a bit like our own families.
When William and Kate made their balcony appearance following their wedding, the crowd roared for the couple to kiss.
And the World War II jets thundering overhead was too much for this 3-year-old flower girl, consoled by the Duchess of Cambridge, now the Princess of Wales.
Later that day, William surprising us all, driving to Clarence House in Prince Charles's blue Aston Martin convertible, the license plate reading, "Just Wed."
On the Queen's 90th birthday, she seemed to correct William as he crouched next to young Prince George, telling the future king to stand up. That was a throwback to this clip from an earlier Trooping of the Colour birthday celebration in 1988.
Her Majesty may have softened a bit by last summer when great-grandson Prince Louis covered his ears during the fly past for her Platinum Jubilee, celebrating 70 years on the throne.
A few days later, she made this surprise appearance to close out the Jubilee festivities. It would be her last time on the balcony.
At her side, son and longtime heir Charles, who will soon make his first balcony appearance as the newly crowned king. And we are lucky to have a front row seat awaiting that moment when King Charles, Queen Camilla, and the royal family make their appearance on the balcony. Everybody wondering, perhaps hoping, whether or not little Louis will do his thing.
We'll see if he makes an appearance. I mean, we're going to have, essentially, we've got to have the King of the United Kingdom up there, but then two future kings, William and George, up on that balcony. We still don't know if we're going to get the fly past. We'll find out about that in the next few minutes because of the weather, but it looks like it might be drying up. I don't know, maybe that's
I don't think so. I love your wishful thinking.
I know, you know, you've got to hope. Anyway, I'll throw it back to you, Michael.
All right, way to be optimistic, James, but I don't think it's drying up, my friend. You know, many iconic moments on the balcony at Buckingham Palace, you guys. Are there any that stand out in your mind?
Well, the one that stands out in my mind, lover of a history, that I've got a picture of it at home, is, not that I was there, I stress, was when Churchill emerged on the balcony with the King and Queen and little princesses Elizabeth and Margaret, and took the salute of the people after the end of World War II. And I think that probably was a moment of total joy and celebration. And it's an incredible picture, yeah.
I never had an opportunity beyond last year for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, but just to have that perch and to be able to see the Queen step out on that balcony, that was really remarkable to me.
I think that was
I had never had that, and
remarkable.
we knew that was her last appearance.
Yeah. That was that moment of total bravery that she had to go there, and she'd been flown in, and she'd been on a wheelchair, which we never saw. Then she got a stick, and she made it.
I think that says it all about the importance of the balcony. There was so much that she couldn't do around that time, but she really wanted to make that appearance, and those appearances now are so iconic. It was Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's husband, who thought up the idea of the balcony, and I wonder what he would think now if he could see just how iconic and central they've become to our image of our royal family and our nation.
Well, that was her final salute as well.
Yeah, but also when you see the royal family on the balcony, it just gives a sense of strength, a sense of pride.
Togetherness, because
And
you see that
togetherness.
family together, and there was something powerful about that.
And those crowds on the Mall as well. I mean,
Well, the crowds,
yeah.
the crowds are lined up out there right now, excited. Some are filing in to get a closer look. As you can see there, their flag flying, a lot of pride. Kids with the iPhones modernizing this occasion, something that they will never forget. Upload it to the cloud and have it forever.
Robert talked about the money shot being the crowning of the king, and that was. I think now the next money shot for everybody is going to be that balcony appearance.
They said it's in the bag, my guys.
They got it.
45 years, but they've got it in the bag.
Well, we have a very special guest we're going to bring in. It's Reverend Dr. Ian Greenshield. He was there in Westminster Abbey participating in the ceremony at the Moderator Church of Scotland. And Reverend, you took part in history. You handed King Charles the Bible that he used to swear an oath to his people. And how did that feel for you?
It felt remarkably easy to do. I thought I would be really nervous, but it was fine. I felt really taken up by the whole occasion. He smiled at me as I offered him the Bible. That relaxed me quite considerably anyway.
Well, did the king seem relaxed to you when you handed him the Bible?
I don't know. It's very difficult to read people in a situation like that. I mean, it doesn't seem as if they smile very often during those big state occasions, but that's just perhaps protocol. The answer is I don't know.
And you know, they did a good job of representing all different faiths in the ceremony at Westminster Abbey. What do you think of that decision?
I think that's a healthy sign. It's a sign of a multicultural United Kingdom that we belong to, a multi-faith society as well, and it's only right that people from all faiths and none should be represented.
Well, I tell you what, Dr. Ian Greenshields, great job today, and thank you for joining us right after taking part in a big piece of history. Thank you so much for your time.
It was a momentous occasion. Thank you.
Absolutely. We appreciate you joining us. And joining us now is the leading expert on the history of coronation, ABC News royalty consultant and an officer of arms to the king, Alistair Bruce. And Alistair, you were consulting with the palace on all the events of the day. Tell us about that.
Well, Michael, you know, everybody else at school was interested in sport, but I was fascinated by Byzantine coronation ritual, and that's pretty much what you've seen enacted remarkably in a modern setting, carrying on traditions that were begun by our ancestors so long ago, almost 3,000 years ago, that it doesn't bear thinking about. But I loved trying to advise and support the Archbishop of Canterbury and his team in the preparation of the service and wherever else I was of any use.
Well, I know this must be very special for you to know that you had a hand in making all of this happen and having a part in it. So you've been studying coronation pretty much your whole life. In your opinion, how did this one go?
Oh, I think it was perfect. It really went well. There was a great line by the previous Earl Marshal, Duke of Norfolk, who said, "No foot shall slide." And no foot did slide. And if you look at the history of the English and the Scots coronations, it's always when things go wrong that people see a portent of something bad in it. Nothing went wrong there. And I think for both the King and the Queen, it was wonderful for them to come in. And I expect they were very nervous. And to go through this ancient ceremony with its many different stages, which must to many people look almost extraordinary. And yet all of it's got this most wonderful story in it. And we've watched that, we've witnessed it. And the King is now anointed, crowned, and enthroned.
Alistair, I love seeing your excitement. You threw that fist up there. You're really, really excited about it. I love seeing that. You know, we're waiting for the King and Queen and royal family to come out on the balcony for that historic vision that we've seen many times before. And outside of that moment, because maybe that will be your favorite moment, outside of that, what stood out most to you today?
I think it was watching the expression on the King's face as the Archbishop of Canterbury brought St Edward's crown down onto his head. It's always nerve-wracking when you're at the centre of anything, but that immensely heavy crown being placed on his head, and I could see the Archbishop just trying to make sure it was absolutely stable, because for the King, he had both his hands full of power and mercy. So there was nothing he could do to adjust it. I thought that was really beautiful. And then we saw young Prince George, who had been a page throughout, watching his grandfather anointed and crowned. I mean, what an extraordinary thing for a young boy who must, somewhere deep in his thinking, wonder whether fate will bring him to that chair one day.
And one thing that was amazing to watch was the military. And they were absolutely incredible, so precise. And I know you were a soldier, you performed at other occasions. So how do you think these soldiers feel having been involved in such a historic event?
Well, Michael, I can speak as a soldier myself because I still serve as governor of Edinburgh Castle. But what I love is the fact that every serviceman and woman is dedicated to serve the King here. And there was that union in the work that they provided him in that great procession, the coronation procession, but also in that fabulous moment when they gave him 3 cheers. Now, soldiers are soldiers, and they're probably longing to go out to the pub tonight. But at the same time, they know they've delivered excellence. And it's the excellence that works out here that is also required, not just by the armed forces of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth, but also the armed forces of all our allies, particularly the United States, when delivering violence against our enemies. And that's what we require our armed forces to do, and it's a challenge. And it's just that here, their loyalty is based in the person of the King.
Well, I would tell you what, those soldiers deserve a few pints tonight, Alistair. I know that we have James and Lara there who want to ask you a few questions as well.
I cannot tell you, thank you, Michael, how thrilled I am to have you here. I mean, Alistair is the most extraordinary person to be asking questions about these things. Look, today was about monarchy and the church, and some would argue they're 2 institutions that are increasingly losing relevance today. How can people watching this around the world find meaning in what they saw today?
Well, I think that if you have faith, it's just as powerful today as it was for anyone in the Middle Ages. But if you don't, I mean, I expect that you need a bit of a map. But then watching how people who are faithful are moved by what it is that they're doing. And I think the King was deeply moved by what he was doing. And I know we didn't see him anointed, but the idea that behind that screen with the soldiers bowing their heads, which I thought was really moving, I almost wept then, that he was being anointed with oil as Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anointed Solomon. And that's about 1,500 years, you know, before we even started crowning kings here. That's got to have, it must move people a bit. And, you know, even if you love going to Disneyland and everything's a bit bizarre and there's a lovely narrative there, the narrative here is also poignantly powerful, and yet it's vested in history and it has its provenance. So I don't know if people didn't like it. Hey-ho, we can't put on anything else. But I think that the monarchy is, that the British don't get very worked up about stuff. Well, I do. But most people in Britain just don't, and they're a bit embarrassed about nationhood and being clearly patriotic. I think the Americans are much more relaxed about that. We're a bit sort of uptight about it.
I want to tell you that Americans are, at least my friends, I've gotten several notes, a bit envious. I have notes from 2 friends who said, I wish I could live there. What I'm seeing is so magical. It's so beautiful. The tradition of it all is the pomp and circumstance. We've said it many times this week. Nobody does it like you guys. And that is the truth today. I wonder, because we've talked about the bigger question, the question of the relevancy of the monarchy and of Prince Charles, and will he be as popular as his mother? Do you think today, and what we've witnessed, and the family affair of it all, and the blended family that we've seen, does that change some minds?
I think that the role of the King is to just be there. We as a nation will either be fond of or not fond of him or the institution. That's a democratic process. But his job is to serve, as he deliberately went through promising he'd do in the service. I don't think Elizabeth II was particularly popular when she came to the throne in 1952. Everyone thought she wouldn't be up to the task. She was 25 and then crowned at 26. Listen, it's very difficult to have a change of reigns. to have our head of state change once every 70 years. And of course, the country is questioning, do we want this? Should we be, is he going to be the same? And I think that's all really healthy. And I don't know. The only monarch who was ever popular coming to the throne in this country since 1714 was King Edward VIII. And in the end, he had to abdicate because many people didn't want him to carry on. So you never quite know. That's the great thing about this.
Yeah.
I mean, your enthusiasm is just so infectious. I just sit here, I can listen to you all day. The rest of the family, you know, the rest of the people talk about William and Kate. That's the future of the monarchy. And you talk about Edward VIII. I mean, he has something of that, something of the kind of debonair. Kate is beloved in this country. She, for a lot of people, she is the future, right? Don't you think?
Well, inevitably, they are the next step. And, you know, they will, I think, in every way they can, support the King and Queen in what they're going to be burdened with. I mean, you know, it all looks very glorious, gold carriages and stuff like that. But I remember having my conversation with the Queen about her coronation, the late Queen. And I asked her what it was like to be in that carriage. She just said, horrible. And I said, were you in it a long time? She said, 4 hours. So she went all the way around London in this thing, you know, and it's terribly uncomfortable, but it looks so glamorous, doesn't it? Big palaces. But, you know, it's a gilded cage. And the king is now a servant to the constitutional settlement that we, as a nation, have chosen. And Parliament is sovereign here. And if Parliament wants something different, and if people who are demonstrating want to persuade the nation to do something different, well, it will. And if Australia decides it no longer wants to have the king as its head of state, it can do that. The king's not going to hang on. You know, it's up to Australia.
I just wanted to ask you a little bit about the moment we've talked about. It's coming. I'm looking at the balcony. It's pouring rain out. 3,800 guests are here in these grandstands. These are veterans. These are representatives of charities near and dear to the King and Queen's hearts. They haven't moved for hours, and we have this cover. They have not. How symbolic is this shot that we're about to get?
They're probably from Scotland, so they'll be fine in the weather.
God, they're not going to love you for saying that.
No, I'm from Scotland. I love bad weather.
That's fair enough.
And all I can say is that, you know, this front of the palace was redesigned in 1913. But Queen Victoria appeared the first time. We're going to see the royal family later on. It's going to be marvellous.
It is going to be marvelous. Thank you so much, Alistair.
That's
Such a pleasure talking to you both yesterday and today. As you said, James,
you
and I know you two are friends. Your enthusiasm, your wisdom we're so lucky to have you.
Not at all. Love being here.
Heading back to you, Michael.
All right, thank you so much, Lara, James, and Alistair. Time to bring in our next guest. Joining us now is the Lord Lieutenant of Bristol, Peaches Golding. And Peaches, you were right in the Abbey during the service. Tell us what that was like.
It was absolutely electric. One of the great things is, of course, we had to arrive before the service, so we got to meet the people that were sitting beside us, whether they were peers from the House of Lords or individuals who had just received British Empire medals or other people. It was just really lovely to get to meet them. And then, of course, when the service started, the music was absolutely heartwarming. There were pieces that had been made especially for the coronation, as well as older pieces of music that many of us have known. And then when the procession started, it just got better and better and better.
And you could feel the emotion from those pieces that were composed just for the coronation, Peaches. And we've been talking this morning about the diversity mixture inside the Abbey. How you had people of color taking so many leading roles. What do you think the King is trying to tell us there?
Well, I think I've worked with the King since the 1990s on the racial diversity issue. He is very well versed, not just about people of different colors, but also people about different faiths and religions. And you heard that reflected in the service today. The fact that Muslims and Hindus and Sikhs and Jewish people of faith all took part in that service. So it is just our King writing large what we know he has been interested in, concerned about, talking about, trying to encourage people to do better, to do more, to do quicker. So it's not something that's new for him at all.
Well, as you said, you've worked with the King for a long time. And what is the institution doing in practical terms to promote diversity? And how has that changed over the years?
Well, we see in today's service, for example, not just women and people of color, but people of different faiths, as we've discussed. And again, if you look across the members of us that support our king and what he is trying to achieve, and also supported Her late Majesty, we also see diversity increasing. So among us Lord Lieutenants who in each of our counties represent the king, you see diversity. Yes, I might have been the first black female ever to hold the role since it was established in the 1540s. We also have 3 or 4 men that are also now Lord Lieutenants as well. So you're seeing out of the 100 of us, we are reflecting the communities across the United Kingdom. When you look a level deeper to our deputies, again, you see that diversity increasing significantly. When you look in the households, those people that serve the working members of the royal family, again, you're seeing diversity. You see it in the military that serve the king. So it's coming very, very, very quickly.
And you said you were the first, but I know you will not be the last, Peaches. And judging from your comment there, I can tell you are hopeful for the future of the monarchy with King Charles in charge.
Oh, yes, and that was very much part of today's service. Hope. Hope for the future. Hope that we, in serving each other in that Christian way, in that way, actually, all of the world's religions talk about. They talk about hope. They talk about living a better life through service, through commitment to other people. And yes, our king has been doing that his entire life. And we see it with young people, the Prince's Trust. You know, every year he has raised tens of millions of pounds, and he's used that money to encourage young people to raise their career horizons, to become employed, to set up new businesses. We have seen his interest in art. He's a beautiful watercolor painter himself. We have seen that interest across all of the fine arts and performing arts. We have seen our king talking about the environment. Back the year 2000, I worked with him to help bring businesses in the United Kingdom together to talk about environmental issues, recycling, reuse, reducing the amount of natural resources that we use. He was well ahead of the time. Again, organic farming, so many things our king has been able to be at the forefront of. Very important issues. Of course, the monarchy is relevant to our time.
Michael, that's very interesting. Peaches, thank you so much for your comments there, because it's so interesting. It's Deborah Roberts here, and I've done some reporting this week about so many, and particularly people of color, looking to the past, right? The colonialist past of the British Empire. But you represent a different viewpoint. Rather than looking back into the past and trying to make up for what has happened, you seem to be looking forward.
I have this knack of losing my earpiece.
Oh. No worries. I hope you can hear me now. Do you hear me now? I don't think she hears me right now, but Michael, I thought it was very interesting that Peaches talked about moving forward, and she represents a viewpoint that I think even a lot of Britons just in general seem to have. The 18 to 24-year-old folks don't seem to be as interested in the monarchy, but the majority still seem to have some reluctance. And Peaches, I understand you're back now, and I find your viewpoint very interesting, because we have heard a lot of people looking into the past, talking about, you know, Britain's colonialist history, but you're talking about looking forward. You're not focused on the past so much, and I find that actually very interesting.
Well, let's go to the past. Let us reflect back in the 1960s, when many of the Commonwealth countries achieved independence. What was one of the first things they did? They joined the Commonwealth. They changed from colony to Commonwealth, whereas our late Queen and our current king, who has spent a lot of time across the Commonwealth, a lot of interest in the Commonwealth, the first thing they do is join up as free and equal nations. And that is really important. Whether it's a large nation or a small nation, it doesn't matter. They come together, they talk about a range of issues, not just those environmental ones, but about legal systems and democracy and how we increase the rule of law. they talk about sport and athletics and come together with the Commonwealth Games. There are Commonwealth scholars that are here in the UK. I meet with 10 or 12 or 15 every year that have come to study their master's degrees, their doctorate's degrees, to learn better how to integrate what is going on in their country and to be forward-facing. So the Commonwealth is very forward-facing.
We know that the king has acknowledged the past. He stopped short of apologizing. Do you think this conversation is going to get bigger? Do you think he's ready for it?
I think there are a number of things that I would say. I would say, first of all, the king is the king of 14 countries. There are 56 countries in the Commonwealth. So he is not the king of all of those realms and territories, but he is of 14, and that includes Canada and Australia, New Zealand, Jamaica, and many of the other island states, whether they're in the Pacific or in the Atlantic. Now, I lost your question when I was explaining.
No, I just wondered if you thought he's ready for this conversation, the bigger conversation that's probably going to be had. They didn't have it during Queen Elizabeth's reign as much, but now people are talking very full-throated about this, and I'm wondering if you think that he's ready for this conversation.
I think he's more than ready for the conversation. I think he will handle it extremely well. Over the past couple of years, the royal family have been opening their archives to certain historians to try to understand a little bit better about history. And let's face it, we're all, on both sides of the Atlantic and in the Pacific, we're all trying to understand a little bit more about history. And the more different voices that we hear telling the stories of history, the more we're able to understand the things that go on. Our king has a very good listening ear. He's very interested. He's very switched on. He's very human. And he will handle that conversation. In fact, he will lead that conversation.
Well, Peaches Golding, we appreciate you taking so much of your time to share your thoughts. We know you have a very intimate relationship with the king, so thank you for that. And now we're going to go back to Peter Westmacott. Absolutely, our pleasure. We're going to go back to Peter Westmacott. And Peter, we heard Peaches talk about the king, the conversation, the inclusion, what he hoped to change in the future. How do you think that King Charles' reign will differ from Queen Elizabeth?
Well, one of the things that struck me during the service was a reminder that not very many years ago, Prince Charles, as he then was, caused some controversy by talking about wanting to be the defender of the faiths in the plural, not just the defender of the faith, which was traditionally the role of the British monarch. And there we were in the prayers today, hearing that the prayer talked about the children, and I read, of every faith and belief, which is a change from the traditional coronation kind of prayer. So there we have a very clear message that the new king wishes to be inclusive, wishes to be the king of a country where everybody of every faith and religion has an equal part in the society of this country. And I think that's an important signal. I know it's personal from his point of view. He's talked about this in the past. So that'll be one element. I think another element where he's going to be a different sort of monarch is in the way in which he reaches out to people in such an informal way, as we saw yesterday that he was doing with his son and daughter-in-law. He loves doing that. He loves engaging with people. He's interested in what they've got to say. And I think we will see more of that informality, more of that engaging with ordinary people, whether it's here in Britain or whether it's traveling around the realms and the other countries. I think we will see a king who wants to travel regularly to other important countries, not just the realms. If you remember, he was going to go to both France and Germany even before his coronation. The visit to France was postponed because of social unrest in France, but he went ahead with a very successful trip to Germany, and I'm sure that the visit to France will take place later in the year, and then there will be visits, I'm sure, to Canada and other parts of the world. So I think he will be actively traveling to countries that matter to Britain, but also of which he's the head of state. And of course, the Queen in her latter years didn't do any long-haul travel. When I was ambassador in Washington, we couldn't get her to come back for a return visit, which President Obama wanted her to undertake. So I think that will feel different, and we're going to have a younger, more active, more traveling monarch. And my last point, I think, is I would say that he's going to be somebody who is not reticent about speaking up on the things that he cares about. That'll be partly climate change and partly young people and volunteering and young offenders. But we saw, for example, even in the political domain, that he was happy to go along with something called the Windsor Framework, which was part of solving the Northern Ireland Protocol problem of our Brexit departure from the European Union. And there he was, actively engaged in the politics of it.
Well, Peter, I'm sorry. Peter, I have to cut you off because it's a big moment happening right now. The King and Queen are out on the balcony, greeted by the crowd that has filled the streets in front of Buckingham Palace. Let's just take it in. The King and Queen there on the balcony, joined by their family. There is Prince William and Catherine. And we seem to be a little amazed about who is on the balcony because it seems to set a new precedent here.
Well, it does and it doesn't. So when Queen Elizabeth came on the balcony, we did see the people who've been involved in the ceremony. And so we see the pages up there, which is not new. But actually, the fact that Camilla's family is on the balcony is new because they're very private individuals and we don't see them making public appearances like this very often. So this is really exciting to see. You know, this is Charles's coronation, but it's Camilla's coronation as well. And the fact that her side of the family and her pages are on the balcony as well reminds us of that.
And I was watching as they first walked out, and I looked to my right, and Robert, I saw you, and you literally took a big, deep breath, and then you were just hit with the moment.
Yeah, the moment. Yeah, it was wow. It was a wow moment. You know, to see my king and my queen walk out on the balcony for the first time is something special. And you know, I just think that all of those people there must be looking out at those incredible crowds. They must be taking their breath away. And look at the king. He's overwhelmed. But yeah, it's a new royal family. This is a new broom has come in, and you know, it's his reign, and it's different. You know, you have Camilla's children, grandchildren there, a family, and you also have the new royal family, the focus of the royal family, the working royals, which includes the future, the Prince of Wales, Prince William and his children, and you know, we're missing Harry. I'd like to see Harry on the balcony myself, but just that's because I would like to see it.
Of course, we were all hoping for that. But to see these young faces, though, Michael, the prominence right there, this is the new evolving face of the monarchy, I think, and it's pretty remarkable.
And here is the fly past. 60 aircraft coming in to honor the coronation of King Charles and Queen Camilla. Due to the weather, though, this will be shorter than usual with only helicopters and red arrows.
Not quite as bright as that red, white, and blue we saw with the Queen last year, huh?
And no Battle of Britain planes, which is a shame. But hey, maybe
the red arrows would be spectacular.
The red arrows are pretty special.
Oh, I guess the fly past is weather permitting. You know, as far as what
those guys and girls are quite amazing in the red arrows.
You know, and we saw them open the barriers there because obviously the procession had come down the Mall, and when they open the barriers, and suddenly the public can fill that space, and that was really impressive to see. People just rushing in.
And Deborah, something you said which struck me, the young faces that are on that balcony now, to be involved in a coronation where it was such almost a solemn, quiet, formal occasion, to come out onto the balcony and have these crowds of thousands cheering loudly, and you saw some of the youngsters look at each other and mouth a few words.
I think Louis looks like he's getting into the moment. You never know with Louis. The rest of them look pretty serious, but it looks like he's pumping his fist. I think he's a little bit excited. As Kate said, you never know what you're going to get with him.
You never know what you're going to get with him. We want to bring in James and Lara, who are right there in the middle of it all. Hey, guys.
Hello,
Hey.
Michael. Just above us right now, the flyby is happening, smaller than we had hoped for due to the weather, but I don't know if you can hear it. It is directly above us right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, how exciting is this? And just the police allowed all these guys to rush forward. So these crowds have been waiting for days and days. This is the reason why they're in tents for days, sleeping on the Mall. They got the front row seat. They're right at the front there. And every time Charles raised his hand, up went the cries. And I have to tell you, the similarly loud cries for William and Kate. They came out of the side door on the balcony there. People really do love to see them. And over, these more helicopters are going above us now. It is just extraordinary to be here. Look, even if it is a reduced flyover, it's still, the atmosphere here is extraordinary.
It's
You're never going to see the King of the United Kingdom on that balcony with the full coronation regalia. I mean, that's quite a spectacle,
We are
right?
very, very lucky to have such a front row seat just behind us. The entire royal family, as you said, Camilla's side as well as the royal family. And above us, we understand these are the red arrows and helicopters only. We were expecting a much bigger flyover. I can actually hear myself talk now as they move past us, but pinch me moment, guys.
Yeah. I think it would have been nice, like Robert said, to have seen Harry up on that balcony. It would have been, I think people here would have liked to have seen that little bit of moment of family unity, but it's still nice to see them all up there. There's William and Kate.
And there's
the kids.
little
What's
Louis.
Louis doing? Oh, he's kind of figuring out whether or not he might cause trouble. We'll wait and see. He's thinking about it.
Yes. Playing an imaginary piano, it seems.
And George has seen something. There, that's the future king spying something down the Mall.
3 generations of king, all just behind us.
Yeah.
On the balcony, and there's us wiping the rain away. Oh, there we go. Good job, Louis. You've come through for us.
And these are the red arrows now. You'll have the red, white, and blue of the United Kingdom.
There we go.
What a moment.
Past the newly restored Big Ben. And the crowd here is screaming, and they can hear the planes coming overhead. And here they come. Look at that. We do this thing right.
That is amazing. You really do. Wow.
It's been brilliant here, guys.
All right, thank
Very
you
rare for
both.
James and I to be speechless, and we are, so we shall send it back to you, Michael.
All right, thank you so much, Lara and James. Great job there for us at Buckingham Palace, describing the sensations, the feelings, and the emotions that are there with everyone that is out on that balcony, and everyone there who's in the crowd watching. And want to bring in Ian Panel. And Ian, what are your emotions like? How are you feeling watching this all transpire?
I mean, you know, Michael, I lived in the States for 11 years. I always used to think you guys do the best shows, right? Whether it's a sports game, whether it's at school, whether it's on the military parade ground. But this is incredible. I mean, I've certainly never seen anything like this. My father was 16 years old during the last coronation. He sat on a black and white TV watching with the rest of the extended family. But to see the red arrows, to see the Chinook helicopters and the others fly across the big wheel over the Houses of Parliament and over to Buckingham Palace, we have just watched history, and there isn't many days that you can say that. Yes, it was a very different kind of coronation from the one that his mother had. Of course it was. It was much more diverse, it was much more inclusive, and it was much smaller. But nevertheless, we still got the show, we still got the ceremony, we got the solemnity of it all, but also the importance. Yes, there are challenges that are going to face Charles, challenges that I think his mother didn't really have to face and certainly wasn't aware of, but I also think that he's very well placed to do that if anyone can. There are many problems out here in London and across the country. Today is one of celebration. Tomorrow is going to be one of getting back to the office, getting back to the grindstone and addressing some of the many needs in the country. Michael?
All right, thank you so much for that, Ian. And as you said, today is the day of celebration. And we're going to go back to Lama Hassan, who is amongst the people in Hyde Park. How's it going out there, Lama?
Wow, Michael, what a moment. And I hope you can hear me over the roar of the crowd. You know, during the actual ceremony itself, the people here were listening intently. They were sitting down. And then they got up. So when the King and Queen left the Abbey and they made their way to Buckingham Palace, I couldn't understand why they were still standing. They were waiting for that balcony moment. I've never seen anything like it. When the King and Queen came out and they started waving, people here were actually waving to the screen. It was incredible. You know, we knew that it was going to rain, so we weren't sure about how many people would turn out. Well, let me tell you, they did not disappoint. There are so many people here in Hyde Park who were here watching the ceremony on the screen. It was absolutely remarkable. And you know what? The government knew this because they allocated some $1.2 million to put up these screens up and down the country. And I have to tell you about a moment, this really surreal moment. I looked to my right, and all of a sudden there was a man who had his scones, his clotted cream, and his jam. You know, it was such a British moment, but it was a surreal moment. And instead of having tea, he had a glass of champagne. But let me tell you, everyone here is celebrating and raising their glass. And when the King and Queen came out on the balcony, everyone's phone was up, wanting to witness this moment and capture it on their phones. And they were all smiling. It was unbelievable to see, Michael.
Well, you know, it's a lot of happiness out there in Hyde Park next to you, Lama. Thank you so much for that. Now we're going to go to Britt, who is on the Mall. She is also hanging out with the crowd. How's it going?
Yeah, with the crowd stretching all the way back to me here. And, you know, I have to say the excitement, the roar of the crowd today, it is a stark contrast to the muted celebrations back home in Australia and in other Commonwealth countries too. You know, this is a big moment for Commonwealth countries. They're at a kind of historic juncture, you know, whether they weigh up whether it's time to get rid of the monarchy as head of state. Many people feel it's just a matter of time. God Save the Queen was once Australia's anthem. The King won't even be on banknotes. You know, big names like Kylie Minogue usually take part in royal events. They decline to. You know, the Australian Prime Minister is in favour of a republic and hasn't ruled out holding a referendum in the near future. So it's a very important moment to reflect.
And another important moment, thank you so much, Britt, is that the King and Queen have come back onto the balcony, like an encore of sorts for themselves. Leave the family inside and come out and let the people see the King and Queen together without anyone else around.
Michael, you know they've got to be feeling such a relief. You know, they practiced this thing. They practiced and practiced. It didn't seem like anything went awry. I don't know, maybe something did and we didn't know about it, but you know they've got to feel great relief that this all went off without a hitch.
But they have to feel very good about today. It just has been incredible. And I love seeing them both come out on the balcony without anyone else except for each other until now the pages are coming out to help them back in. But it was kind of to me to say, hey, we're in this together. We are the King and the Queen, and we are here for you.
And quite a journey they've had, Michael, you know, quite a journey. And I think everybody will acknowledge that they've served us well. And this has been their moment of destiny. And I think they've carried it out with aplomb. Personally, I think that they're going to emerge from this experience different people. And I, for one, wish them well, and I really hope that they achieve what they want to.
And we're going to go to Maggie Rulli, and Maggie is at Westminster Abbey, where the coronation ceremony took place. Hey, Maggie.
Hey, Michael. Well, all the guests have left the Abbey now, but you can still hear the bells are still going strong. You can still feel the energy here, Michael. You can feel the weight of history, because I think it bears repeating just the history that we all witnessed here today. You know, once again, every coronation since 1066 has taken place right here at Westminster Abbey, and now King Charles is a part of that history forever. Now, we know that he wants to modernize the monarchy. We saw today during the ceremony some of the steps he's taking to do just that. And you know, Michael, one moment that really stood out for me, you mentioned it earlier, this was a family affair. The moment when Prince William, heir to the throne, kissed his father on his cheek, and the look on King Charles's face was just a look that I think all parents can feel. We know there was so much emotion today, so much weight in this moment, and for me, that stands out as something that I will remember. That And these bells and all the pomp and circumstance. I have to tell you, Michael, no matter how many events like this we cover, gosh, the Royals, they know how to bring a party, don't they? They know how to celebrate in style.
I gotta say, they do it right, and you're right about that. I mean, to watch them all together, family affair, was just, you could tell that there was a lot of pride there, Maggie.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, we're right above you. Those bells, they have been ringing for quite a long time. I think they'll be ringing in my head for quite a long time as well, even after this is all done. And if you're just joining us now, it's the coronation of King Charles and Queen Camilla, and right after 9:30 a.m. on the East Coast, 6:30 a.m. in the West, and 2:30 p.m. here in London. And the King and Queen, they've been crowned in a historic service at Westminster Abbey. Let's take a look at that moment. And now you have the entrance of King Charles. Let's just listen in and watch.
I here present unto you King Charles, your undoubted king. Wherefore, all you who are come this day to do your homage and service, are you willing to do the same? God save King Charles.
I here present unto you King Charles, your undoubted king. Wherefore, all you who are come this day to do your homage and service, are you willing to do the same?
I here present unto you King Charles, your undoubted king. Wherefore all you who are come this day to do your homage and service, are you willing to do the same? God save King Charles.
I here present unto you King Charles, your undoubted king. Wherefore, all you who are come this day to do your homage and service, are you willing to do the same?
God save King Charles.
The coronation oath has stood for centuries and is enshrined in law. Are you willing to take the oath?
I am willing.
Will you solemnly promise and swear to govern the peoples of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, your other realms and the territories to any of them belonging or pertaining, according to their respective laws and customs?
I solemnly promise so to do.
Will you, to your power, cause law and justice in mercy to be executed in all your judgments?
I will.
Will you, to the utmost of your power, maintain the laws of God and the true profession of the gospel? Will you, to the utmost of your power, maintain in the United Kingdom the Protestant Reformed religion established by law? Will you maintain and preserve inviolably the settlement of the Church of England and the doctrine, worship, discipline, and government thereof, as by law established in England? And will you preserve unto the bishops and clergy of England and to the churches there committed to their charge all such rights and privileges as by law do or shall appertain to them or any of them?
All this I promise to do. The things which I have herebefore promised, I will perform and keep, so help me God.
We see them come in with the screen that is made especially for this coronation. It is the one part of the ceremony that will not be seen by cameras. And Robert, can you explain this to us? What happens behind that screen?
Well, this is the most sacred moment where he is anointed with the holy oil that's coming from the Mount of Olives. What happens is the Dean of Westminster passes the ampulla, pours the oil from the ampulla, which means essentially derives from jug in Latin. He pours that into the spoon with his fingers. The spoon, the oldest part of the jewels. He then anoints the king on his forehead, on his wrists, and on his chest. And that is the moment that he is anointed by God.
What is the symbolism of him removing that robe and being exposed to the...
Kind of a rebirth,
like
isn't it?
Essentially, it is that, but he comes to the church, he comes to the Royal Peculiar, the Westminster Abbey, as a pauper. That's what that's supposed to be, and he leaves as a king. And that's why he's in that woven shirt, and that is the significance of it.
It's a humbleness, isn't it? Before God,
yeah.
Sleeveless tunic is
Made by,
representing that.
This is made from by his shirt makers. There's been craftsmen on every single piece of this regalia, but the fact is that's the symbolism of it.
And for history lovers, I think this is where it's all so fascinating, because a lot of this stuff, as you said, the regalia dates back to the 12th century.
And now he's been fitted with a gold
This
robe,
is called
Victoria.
a super tunica, and this one was actually made for King George V. It was also worn by King George VI and Elizabeth II. This is designed based on priestly clothes. You can kind of see that design there. And this is ready for him to be invested now with the different pieces of regalia with all their different symbolisms.
And I can only imagine, it must have been altered. to go through so many, it must have been altered at some point. But we're going to take you back inside the church to the ceremony.
To watch your son participate in something like this.
To have your son participate, to have your grandson participate, this is truly a family coordination.
And it really emphasises the significance of William as the heir, the fact that he has two formal roles within the coronation. We'll see him later on paying homage.
King of kings and Lord of lords, bless, we beseech thee, this crown, and so sanctify thy servant Charles, upon whose head this day thou dost place it for a sign of royal majesty, that he may be crowned with thy gracious favour and filled with abundant grace and all princely virtues. Through him who liveth and reigneth supreme over all things, one God, world without end, Amen.
Here's the moment that we have all been waiting for, the crowning of King Charles.
God save the King!
And there we have it, the crowning of King Charles. We heard the gun salute right outside of the studio here. And you can hear the church bells ringing. What do you guys think? How are you feeling right now? You are from the UK. This is a big moment for this country, for the world. How are you feeling right now, Mr. Jobson?
Deep pride in the King and everybody that's carried out this incredible historic service. Deep pride in my country and the royal family and the clergy, but particularly a bit of relief for the King, because I thought when the Archbishop was trying to get that crown on his head, he was trying a little too hard.
I noticed that too. He wanted to make sure he got it on just right.
Well, it is 5 pounds. It will be the only time that the King will wear this crown will be today. He just wanted to make sure he got it right. You could not have that fall off of his head. And Victoria, how are you feeling going through this?
Just that kind of release there, that kind of explosion of sound almost. We heard the gun salutes, we had the Abbey bells behind us, and the mood really shifted because it was very solemn. It was quite tense. It felt very serious. And then suddenly it actually feels quite joyous now. It feels like a moment of celebration.
Definitely a moment of celebration. And as we wrap up, we're going to go back to James and Lara outside of Buckingham Palace to get their final thoughts. Hey, you two.
Hello, thank you for this incredible seat. Talk about a front row seat. As an American, I'm in awe of the pageantry, the pomp and the circumstance. And it's been such a joy having James fill me in behind the scenes and what it means to you as well.
Look, it's been so much fun. It's been an important day. It's been a day of gravity, of pomp, of circumstance. But let's face it, it's also been kind of ridiculous. We've been celebrating a man with a crown in a gold horse and carriage trotting around London. But England, Britain, we are kind of ridiculous. This is a bit of an eccentric country. We leave room for that in our society, and that's what I'm proud of. I'm proud to be British today because we celebrated everything that it means to be British. And thank you for being here. Thank you guys as well.
All right, James, Lara, thank you. And James, thank you for letting us be a part of the ridiculousness of this entire affair. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you two. You brought so much to the broadcast. And now I want to bring it back into the studio, because I want to hear all your final thoughts and your favorite moments that happened during this coronation, because the overall theme was inclusion, it was family, it was the modern monarchy. How do you think they did in establishing that?
Well, it was just a coronation like no other in its 1,000-year history. It was totally different to 1953. We saw completely different makeup of people inside that abbey playing prominent roles, and it really was a showcase for modern Britain today. I love the fact that they didn't have any tiaras. It was much more scaled down. Instead, these really nice headpieces. And I just felt that what we saw was a great show. There are lots of debates about the monarchy, but they put on a great show.
That is well said. You do put on a great show. Mr. Jobson, how about you?
It was my Super Bowl, really. I tell you, it was immensely proud to have and I'm honoured to have had this seat to witness it. I mean, it was a crowning glory of the King, crowning glory of the people, and his moment of destiny. But more important than that, it was a moment of true celebration when the King was acclaimed by his people and the bells just kept ringing.
Well, it's funny, you say the Super Bowl, and first thing, I know football very well, American football. I'm like, Super Bowl, which Except for this case, you had to wait 70 years for the game, and then you already knew who the winner was before you even started.
Well, the big thing that's going to happen now, though, this is a fantastic showcase of monarchy.
Yes.
And a fantastic showcase of our system of government. But let's be real, this is just the beginning. We've got a new generation, and they've got a lot of people are apathetic. This is a great moment, and I'm not saying trying to deride it. What I'm saying is that the hard work, the hard yards start now. And I think it's not only for this king, but for the one that follows, with William, and for George, to make sure that this system works, because otherwise we're going to have a different look at it. And I actually believe in monarchy, because when you have a diverse society, when you have polarized society, we've seen around the world, not least even in America, it's good to have a system of government, a head of state who is not political, who can unite people around their country whilst not having a political divide.
And I know you talked a lot about that.
I did talk a lot about that, and I loved hearing from Peaches Golding, who talked about looking forward, because I think for a lot of people, that's what this is about. It is a reset. I mean, there's a lot of tough conversations that will be ahead probably for the monarchy, but it is sort of a reset to look at those faces in the Abbey today, to think about where we go from here, because as you said, Robert, that's what it's all about. But Michael, I have to tell you, when you talked about no tiaras today and the hats and all, I couldn't help but notice all that, of course. So, since we're ending, maybe I will have to bring out my hat.
I couldn't resist.
A little homage to ABC News here,
Oh, wow. I did not notice that part. You really went all in.
Of course. Thanks to my friend Christine Moore back at home.
That's definitely customary. You have your crown now?
For Michael.
Well, I would tell you, it was such a historic moment, and so interesting to sit here with a bird's eye view of Westminster Abbey, to see all the pomp, all the circumstances, all the pageantry.
And the vivid colors.
And the vivid colors.
Yes,
And then to see everyone come back on the balcony, and you can see, in a lot of ways, some relief.
Right.
As if now it is time to move on to this modern new monarchy, to see if they can live up to all the things that are being promised at this point in this country with this monarchy.
And absolutely what Deb was saying, it's about time to move forward as a country. I mean, this is the first monarch that wasn't serving in the Second World War, and I think there's been a lot of reference to the past. It's really time to move forward as a country together. And look, we're in a very different world now to 50, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. We saw all that continuity of what we did best, the pageantry. But it's now about where is Britain now in the world, and I think that's what the King and all those politicians are going to sort out who are there today, because we're a very different country.
Well, I'm pretty sure we're going to have many conversations with the both of you as we go forward. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you being here, helping us cover this historic coronation of King Charles and Queen Camilla. And it's been such an honor to be a part of this event. And I want to thank our incredible team, Deborah, Robert, and Victoria, here with me in the studio, as well as Lara and James, Ian, Maggie, Britt, and Lama out across London. And we also want to give a special thanks to our contributors, Peter, Elsa, and Christina. We want to thank you all for joining us and watching. Hopefully you did the full 5 hours. But you know what? We're going to leave you with some of the images of the day. Enjoy.
has been a special report from ABC News.
Good morning, America. Crowned king.
God save the king!
Charles ascends to the throne in an elaborate ceremony combining centuries-old traditions with modern new additions. The pomp and pageantry of the big day, heads of state and celebrities gathering in Westminster Abbey, and the jubilant crowd celebrating outside. Michael Strahan leading our special coverage live from London.
Journey to the throne. Charles, a king in waiting since age 3, now fulfilling his date with destiny, looking to reshape the image of the monarchy. Plus, Charles and Camilla, the couple from a scandal to a love story.
Royal rift. Prince Harry returning to the UK to support his father amid tensions with his brother. The very different roles they played in the ceremony and why Harry left so quickly.
Video deposition. Donald Trump under oath discussing the accusations made against him in that assault and defamation trial, the mistake he made,
it's Marla,
and what he said about his accuser.
Crisis at the border. The U.S. bracing for an influx of asylum seekers with COVID-era restrictions set to expire. The Secretary of Homeland Security surveying the scene, GMA right there with him.
New twist in the case of the Menendez brothers, convicted of shooting their parents nearly 30 years ago. A former member of the boy band Menudo coming forward with his own allegations. Will it lead to a new trial?
Subway death. The new details about the former Marine who put another man in a deadly chokehold. How he's defending himself.
Fighting back. The Celtics spoiled the emotional night in Philly to take a lead in the series. And the Suns shine bright overnight in Phoenix. The record-setting two-man show from Kevin Durant and Devin Booker now one game away from tying the series against the Denver Nuggets.
And party on. The celebration's just getting started over the newly crowned king. The star-studded event at Windsor Castle. Lionel Richie, Katy Perry, and Andrea Bocelli, just some of the artists who will take the stage. We are live in London for this once-in-a-lifetime weekend. It's GMA at the coronation.
Live from Times Square and London, this is a special edition of Good Morning America.
And good morning, America, for our viewers in the West. On this historic morning, we begin with that massive celebration for the coronation of King Charles III and Queen Consort Camilla. Just moments ago, a dramatic flyby over the crowds at Buckingham Palace. Jets trailing streams of red, white, and blue. The rain coming down in London, but couldn't possibly dampen the festive mood for the first British coronation in 70 years. The newly crowned king and queen took to the balcony at Buckingham Palace along with other members of the royal family just a bit ago, signaling a new era for the British monarchy.
And thousands of well-wishers outside the palace waving flags, so excited to witness this moment. But before that, there were lots of other memorable moments. Prince William kissing his father on the cheek after pledging his loyalty to him, and young Prince George in his page role, the 9-year-old who is now second in line to be king himself, helping carry his grandfather's robe inside the church.
And we have live team coverage this morning from across London on the key moments of the coronation, from right there at Buckingham Palace to the mall where crowds camped out to get a glimpse of the king and queen, to Methodist Hall, and that's where Michael Strahan and Deborah Roberts have been leading our coverage for the past 5 hours. Good morning to you both. What a day.
5 hours.
Yes, it's been 5 hours, but it's been a great 5 hours, a very interesting 5 hours. We're here to witness history, and it did not disappoint you guys. And I heard you, Janae, you called it you said it was culminated with that flyby, and then you changed it to, you said flyover, then you changed it to a flyby. You're right on both regards, because flyover is how we say it in the States. Flyby is how they say it here. But it is definitely was something to behold, and I'm proud to do this with you, Deborah.
Oh, same here, Michael, and it's just been such a pleasure. It was such an interesting day. You and I have been here talking about this for a couple of days now, and of course a lot of comments about the monarchy and whether it's relevant in different countries now within the Commonwealth thinking about pulling out of it. But I have to tell you, this moment in history, if you're a history buff, particularly looking at all the regalia that was on display here today, and you know the 700-year-old chair where he was crowned, and the family. I mean, I'm a family person, you're a family person. To see Prince George and Prince William participating in this ceremony, and you could see the gravity of it and the seriousness of it on the new king's face. It was really something to behold.
And I got to say, and we cannot take all the credit here. Robert Jobson here, Victoria Murphy, they helped us through it. They helped us understand why this is so important to them and to everyone here in this country and through all the countries under the Commonwealth. So it was a momentous, an exciting day, and we're just happy to be a part of it. And now I'm going to throw it back to you, Janae, in the studio, and I will call you my queen.
Oh, Michael Strahan, you know how to hit a high note, and I appreciate you for that fly-by, fly-over. Us Americans, we're trying to get all caught up with the British lingo.
We're trying.
Amid all the pomp and circumstance. You guys did a fantastic job. And one of the most highly anticipated moments of the morning, all eyes on the balcony at Buckingham Palace. Everyone watching and just waiting to see who would make an appearance. Lara is there, has been there all morning at Buckingham Palace with that moment that really sets the tone for King Charles's reign. Lara, James, good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Janae. Great to see you guys. We had such an incredible day. This is truly a front row seat to that moment, the balcony shot, if you will, when we saw the royal family. But it was also really exciting, as you pointed out, that we saw Camilla's side of the family as well. And we've talked about this. This is a new day that has dawned with the blended families and meeting Queen Camilla and all of her family and her pages, her grandsons and her sister's grandson. But for me, the moment that really it made me emotional was watching Prince William kiss his father during the homage portion of the coronation. It was just very endearing. Not only were we witnessing history, seeing a future monarch kiss the king, but we're also seeing a father and a son in a very intimate, special moment. And you could tell by the king's face how emotional he was and how seriously he was taking all of it. I also loved sitting next to this guy. James Longman knows so much about the history and the symbolism and of all of the different parts of the coronation. It was such a joy sitting with you.
I had a great time, Lara, and you know, it just made me proud, honestly. It made me proud to be British, because whether or not you're into monarchy, whether or not you think monarchy should exist in the 21st century, whether or not you're that religious, because ultimately today really was a religious ceremony above all else, because he's being invested not just as head of state, but head of the church in